This video is going to be Chumash, and I'm going to do everything outside because I feel like I'll just get through it faster. But if you want me to do stuff inside, then let me know. Okay. Pasuk Aleph says, Sarai, the wife of Avram, had no kids, but she had an Egyptian maidservant, and her name was Hagar. Then Pasuk Bet says, and Sarai said to Avram, behold, Hashem has stopped me from having children. Be with my maidservant, maybe I'll be built up from her. And Avram listened to Sarai's voice. Pasuk Gimel, and Sarai, the wife of Avram, took her Egyptian maidservant, Hagar, and it's been 10 years that Avram had been living/settled in Canaan, and she, Sarai, gave her, Hagar, to her husband, Avram, to be his wife. Basically to have kids with him because Sarai wants kids in the house because she couldn't have any. Pasuk Daled, and he was with Hagar, and she became pregnant, which is, by the way, Tahar, because we actually need to know that. And it became visible that she was pregnant, and her mistress/boss, meaning Sarai, became lower in Hagar's eyes, and so Hagar saw Sarai as on a lower level. Pasuk Hey, and Sarai said to Avram, my suffering is your fault. I gave you my maidservant into your arms, and look, she got pregnant. I was lowered in her eyes. Hashem will judge you for this between us. Pasuk Vav is, and Avram said to Sarai, behold, she's your servant in your hands. Do what is good in your eyes, meaning deal with her. And Sarai afflicts her, which means like causes her suffering. And she, Hagar, runs away from her, Sarai. Okay, so the first Rashi that we did was on the word Shifcha Mitzra. And it means she had a Egyptian maidservant. So this Rashi is basically just telling us that she was Paro's daughter. Hagar was Paro's daughter. And because it makes sense because she's Egyptian. And when Paro, saw the miracles that were done for Sarai's sake, like when Avram and Sarai were in Mitzrayim, he saw the miracles. He said, it's better that my daughter be a servant in Avram and Sarai's house rather than a mistress, meaning a boss, in any other house. So she then went and worked for them. So the questions on the bottom says, who is Shifcha Mitzra? And it's Hagar bat Paro. And then the question, what classic Rashiism is revisited here, is that Rashi always refers, not always, but he lots of times will refer new characters to ones that we already know. And we see that here because we're getting introduced to Hagar, and he's like, oh, but it's bat Paro. What? She's bat Paro. Okay. The next Rashi we did was on the words Vatakel Gevarata Be'ena. So that means Pasuk Daled, hold on. That means and she was lowered in she was lowered in her eyes. Okay, so there's two questions that we have on this. Why? Oh wait. Yeah, she was lowered in her eyes. Oh yeah, okay, fine. There was two questions on this. Why was Sarai lowered in Hagar's eyes? Another question is, what does it mean for someone to be lowered in someone's eyes? So Rashi says, Hagar would say, this Sarai that you see on the streets is not the same in public and in private. She makes herself look like she's a tzaddiket, but she's not a tzaddiket. She didn't merit / deserve to get pregnant, and she didn't get pregnant all these years. But I, Hagar, got pregnant on the first try. So to answer the first question, why was Sarai lowered in Hagar's eyes, is because she's like, oh, clearly since Sarai couldn't get pregnant, it means she doesn't deserve it. And then she went around telling everyone she's a bad person, she's not really this nice when she's in private, etc. Okay, and then answer number 2 was, what does it mean for someone to be lowered in someone's eyes? It means that you lose your respect for them. Hagar lost the respect for Sarai. And then the question on the bottom, what kind of speech is Hagar engaging in here? And it's Lashon Hara, because she's going around telling everyone that Sarai is different than she is in public. Okay, the next Rashi on Hamas Elacha, which means my suffering is your fault. Okay, we have a question on it. What do you mean Avram's fault? Why is Sarai saying that this is Avram's fault? Wasn't it Sarai's idea for Avram to become pregnant with Hagar? What suffering did Avram cause her if it was her idea? So we have two answers. So Yeah, basically, she realized, I'm going to go actually in the words of the Rashi, but not in Hebrew, but in like English, you'll see, and then I'll explain it. So, this is Sarai's thoughts. So, for the suffering that you caused me, this punishment I put on you. When you daven to Hashem, quotes, what have you, Hashem, given me, Avram? I walk empty-handedly, end quote. You only prayed for yourself, and you should have davened for both of us. And if you would have davened for me, I would have been remembered with you. So, what is this all saying? So, the first answer is basically she realized that when Avram davened for a kid, Avram davened to Hashem for a kid, he asked a kid for himself. And here we see Hashem's giving him what he asked for. But, Sarai is saying, maybe if Avram had prayed for both of them, like, give me and Sarai a kid, then maybe she could have had a kid. So she's kind of saying, like, my suffering is your fault because you didn't pray for both of us. You just prayed for yourself. Okay. And by the way, we learn a lesson here, which is if you daven for someone else before you, your prayers get listened to strongly. And not only will they get what they need, but they get what you need, but you're also going to get what you need if you daven for someone else. Yeah. Okay. And then the second answer on this Rashi's question, the same question, is that one other thing, like one other reason that you caused me suffering. So it's like saying what is another reason is that you hear that I'm being degraded by Hagar, but you're quiet. Basically, another one of my sufferings is Hagar talking bad about me, which we learned in the last Rashi. And Avram is not doing anything about it to help her. He's not like telling people to stop talking badly or anything like that. So she's saying, my suffering of everybody talking about me is your fault. You're not putting an end to it. Okay. Next Rashi. Actually, this is a Ramban. I don't know how to say it. Okay. It's on the words, Vata'aneh Sarai v'tivrach mipanehan. Okay. So this is just like a thought. There's no really question. So our mother, Sarai, sinned with this affliction, meaning she did the wrong thing by afflicting Hagar, like causing pain to Hagar, and Avram allowed her to do this. Hashem listened to her affliction. She listened to Hagar's pain and like Sarai's being mean, and he gave her a son. He gave Hagar a son that will be a wild man, and it will cause suffering to Avram and Sarai's future kids. So basically, since Sarai was the one that afflicted Hagar, and Avram didn't do anything about it, both of them get punished. What's their punishment? Is that the future kid of Hagar will be wild and will cause suffering to Avram and Sarai's future kids. Hold on. Future kids. I just needed to. Okay. So, yeah. And then, now we have the Pesukim that we did today in class. Okay, Pasuk Zion. An angel found her next to a spring of water in the desert that was on the way to a place called Shir. And by the way, her is Hagar, like an angel found Hagar. Pasuk Chet. And the angel said, Hagar, the maidservant of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? And she said, I'm from Sarai, my boss, I ran away from. And Pasuk Tet says, and the Malach said to her, return to your boss and lower yourself into her hands. What does that mean? It means like humble yourself, accept where you are, like you're her maidservant, accept that. Pasuk Yud, and the Malach continues and says, in Hashem's words, I, as in Hashem, so I will make your children many. They won't be able to be counted because they are so many. So it shows that the blessing that Hashem gave to Avram previously was on, like, for both of his kids. Like, both of his kids will have so many kids and they won't be able to be counted. It's not only Yitzchak, it's also going to be Ishmael. Okay, Pasuk Yud Aleph, and the Malach continues and says, behold, you became pregnant, you'll give birth to a son, and you will call his name Yishmael, because Hashem will listen to your suffering. Because the word means like Shema El or whatever, I think. So that means like Hashem listened to your suffering. Whatever. Okay, Yud Bet, the Malach continues talking. He will be known as a wild man. His hand will be in everything, and everyone's hand against him. Meaning he'll be in a war type nation. And he will dwell amongst his brothers. Okay, and then Pasuk Yud Gimel, says, and she called out Hashem's name, she is Hagar, who spoke with her. You are the God that sees, meaning she said, you are the God that sees. And she also says, and I have seen more than what I've seen. Basically, really not important. She said, like, Mrs. Tepper said that line isn't really important, but yeah. Okay, Pasuk Yudalid. Therefore, this well, because she was by springs, so this well, she called it, Hagar called the well, Ba'ar la'achai roi. Behold, so she called that, and then the pasuk says, behold, it's in between Kadesh and Barad, 2 cities, it's in between. Pasuk Tesvav, so she went back, this is not in the pasuk, but we have to just know, she went back to Avram, and then here, pasuk Tesvav, she gave birth to Avram's son, and they called it Yishmael. Okay, and then pasuk Tet Zayin, Avram is 86 years old when Hagar gave birth to Ishmael. Okay.